What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it is time to give you the top 10 easiest schedules for the upcoming 2024 college football season. So as you guys know, yesterday we completed our schedule preview and projected record series for all the Power 4 teams. So we're going to be basing this off of that. We're going to give you the easiest schedules for 2024, just based on those schedule preview and projected record series. And which schedules do I feel like were the easiest once I started those schedule previews back in the month of January. So that's what it's going to be based off of. We're going to do the easiest schedules for today, and then tomorrow we're going to do the opposite. We're going to do the top 10 toughest schedules for tomorrow, but again, we're starting with the top 10 easiest schedules for 2024. So let's just jump right into this list. We'll start from the bottom and work our way to the top in this top 10 countdown, and we'll start here with number 10. Number 10 is going to be Pittsburgh. They do have a pretty easy schedule this year. They'll play Kent State, Cincinnati, West Virginia, and Youngstown State in the non-conference. So you're probably thinking, why is this schedule so easy for, Pittsburgh? Because they do play Cincinnati and West Virginia. Yes, those are going to be very tough non-conference games, but it's not really about the non-conference schedule. It's more about the conference schedule. They do play North Carolina, Clemson, and Louisville, but they don't have to play Miami, of course. They don't have to play Florida State. And also, they don't have to play NC State either, so that's how the schedule came out to be pretty easy for Pittsburgh. Now, just because they played North Carolina and Louisville both on the road, and then, of course, West Virginia and Cincinnati, they're not really in the top 5 just because of those games. And, they are still number 10, though, just because they don't play those 3 teams there out of the ACC. So, Pittsburgh here at number 10. Again, you've got some tough road games with Louisville and North Carolina, but you get Clemson here at home at least, so they're number 10 here on this countdown. Number 9 is Syracuse, so we stay in the ACC. Syracuse will play Ohio, Holy Cross, UNLV, and UConn in the non-conference, so a pretty easy non-conference schedule for Syracuse. They will play NC State here on the road, and then, of course, Miami. The good news is they get that game at home. So, yeah, NC State will definitely be their toughest, road game here in the conference, but they don't have to play Clemson. They don't have to play Florida State. They also don't have to play Louisville and North Carolina. So you're talking about a schedule for Syracuse. It's not one of the easiest in the ACC, but it's very close to that. And it's not really just because of the conference schedule. It's also because of the non-conference. Again, this non-conference schedule is so easy for Syracuse. So again, you really couldn't ask for a really good schedule if you're a Syracuse fan. Again, NC State will be their toughest game here on the road, and then of course Miami will be their toughest game at home. But either way, I think they have a really good chance to probably knock off Miami in that game. So Syracuse here at number 9. Number 8 is the Missouri Tigers. Missouri obviously is the only SEC team here on this countdown that you're going to see. And a big reason why. They are the only team in the SEC with an easy schedule. They'll play Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and then, of course, UMass here in the non-conference. Pretty easy non-conference schedule. They'll play Boston College. That's another Power 4 team, but I do expect Missouri to be favored in that game. But you look at this SEC schedule. They do play Texas A&M and Alabama both on the road, but no Georgia, no Texas, no Ole Miss, and no Tennessee. And, also maybe Kentucky you can probably throw in there as well, but again, this is a pretty easy schedule. I also forgot to mention LSU. They don't play them either, so let's just put out Kentucky instead and put LSU in here. Again, this is a pretty favorable schedule for Missouri, a team, of course, that is coming off a 10-win season last year. They could probably do it again this year with this type of schedule. Again, the non-conference schedule is so easy. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and UMass. UMass is, of course, on the road, but I do expect Missouri to be a big favorite in that game still. But again, Texas A&M and Alabama is the reason why they're not really, high on this list. That's the reason why they're here at number 8 still, instead of being high on this list. Now, if they didn't have to play Alabama or Texas A&M both on the road, this Missouri team would definitely be higher on this list. But again, Missouri has a pretty easy schedule this year. Again, no Texas, no Georgia, and also no Ole Miss, Tennessee, and also LSU. So Missouri here at number 8. And again, the only SEC team here on this countdown. Again, at number 8 here on this countdown. Moving on to number 7, we got Arizona. Arizona will play New Mexico, Northern Arizona, and Kansas State here on the road in the non-conference. So, yeah, Kansas State is a Big 12, team and everything. Arizona is a newcomer, but that's a non-conference game because it was scheduled from the year before. But you look at their Big 12 schedule, they'll play Utah, of course, here on the road. That's probably going to be their toughest road game here in the Big 12. They do play West Virginia. The good news is they get that game at home, but they don't have to play Oklahoma State or Kansas, and they also don't have to play, or I should say they don't have to play anybody else really that tough in the Big 12. I think they just avoid those two teams. Like I said, Kansas and Oklahoma State. I think that's the reason why Arizona deserves to be on this list. But again, first year in the Big 12, Arizona the first-year head coach. We don't know how good this team could possibly be, but anything can happen in this conference here in the Big 12, and I think this schedule does set up nicely for Arizona to still have the same kind of season. Not the same kind of season as last year, but still enough to make it to a bowl game perhaps. But again, Kansas State and Utah will be very tough games there on the road. But again, West Virginia, you get that game at home at least. But again, no Oklahoma State and Kansas. That's how Arizona ended up being here at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we're back in the ACC. We got Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech will play Vanderbilt, Marshall, Old Dominion, and Rutgers here in the non-conference. Now, you're probably thinking that Vanderbilt game will be tough, but it's really not going to be tough either way. Vanderbilt, obviously, one of the worst teams in the SEC. And then you got Rutgers here in a rematch from last year. The good news is they get that game at home. They'll play Miami here on the road, and then, of course, Clemson here. The good news is they get that game at home. You look at this schedule, though. They don't have to play NC State. They don't have to play Louisville, North Carolina, or Florida State. So you're talking about a schedule for Virginia Tech that sets up really well nicely for them. It's not really high enough to make it into the top 5, but it was really close. It was really close for me to put Virginia Tech in the top 5. But again, Virginia Tech is a team that's getting a lot of hype this year. A lot of production coming back, of course. The most production that they have coming back in the country. So yeah, Virginia Tech with a pretty easy schedule and also the most production coming back. Again, the reason why they're here at number 6 is just because of that non-conference schedule. Again, they'll play Vanderbilt and Rutgers, 2 Power 4 teams. That's what's keeping them here outside the top 5. But again, Miami on the road, that'll be a very tough one. And then, of course, Clemson, that'll also be tough, but the good news is they get that game at home. But like I said, no NC State, no Florida State, no North Carolina, and Louisville. So Virginia Tech here at number 6. Moving on to number 5, we got Utah. First year, of course, in the Big 12, they'll play Southern Utah, Baylor, Utah State here on the road in the non-conference. So like we mentioned with Kansas State and Arizona, that Baylor game is not a conference game. It will be a non-conference game because this game was scheduled from the year before, and Utah, of course, will play them at home in the non-conference. And then you look at their Big 12 schedule. They'll play Oklahoma State, of course, here on the road. That'll be their toughest road game, but they don't have to play Kansas. They don't have to play Kansas State, and they also don't have to play West Virginia. I mean, this is a pretty easy schedule for Utah, a team that is coming in probably are the favorites to win the Big 12 this year. Again, how this schedule sets up, I think that is a reason why they can probably win the Big 12 this year. And again, Oklahoma State is going to be their toughest road game. The non-conference schedule is pretty easy, but again, they don't have to play Kansas. They don't have to play, like I said, they don't have to play Kansas. They don't have to play West Virginia, and also they don't have to play Kansas State. So a pretty easy schedule here for Utah for the 2024 season, heading into their first year in the Big 12. Again, they're here at number 5 on this countdown. Number 4 is North Carolina. They will play, of course, Minnesota here in the non-conference. Again, that'll be a tough game there on the road. But you look at the rest of the non-conference. They'll play Charlotte and NC Central and James Madison. James Madison, you think that probably will be a tough game, but James Madison definitely won't be the same team as they were from last year. But you look at this conference schedule. They will play Florida State and NC State. Those are definitely their 2 toughest games here in the ACC. Florida State, of course, is on the road. And then you got NC State at home at least. That's a rivalry game. You never know what can happen, obviously, but they don't have to play Miami, Clemson, or Louisville on this schedule, so you do avoid those 3 teams there in the ACC, which I think is really good news for North Carolina. Now, the Tar Heels might not be the same team as they were from last year, but at least they have a really nice schedule for them, especially for a young team coming up this year in 2024. Like I said, Minnesota will be a tough one there in the non-conference on the road. Same thing with Florida State and NC State here in the ACC, but again, no Louisville, no Miami, and also Clemson here on this schedule. That's how North Carolina ended up being here at number 4. Number 3, speaking of NC State, they're here at number 3 on this countdown. They'll play Western Carolina, Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, and Northern Illinois in the non-conference. So Tennessee will be a tough one there in that, in that neutral site game in Charlotte. Of course, it's not really anybody's home field advantage, and everything in that game. But that will be a tough game either way. Then they'll play Clemson here on the road in Death Valley, and then they got North Carolina on the road as well. But really, that's it. I mean, NC State does have a pretty easy schedule. They don't have to play Miami. They don't have to play Florida State, and they also don't have to play Louisville. So that's the really good news there. You do avoid those 3 teams here in the ACC. You also don't have to play Virginia Tech, like I mentioned earlier, with the team with the most production coming back this year. So yeah, NC State does have a pretty easy schedule. But like I said, Tennessee in Charlotte will be a tough one. Clemson and Death Valley will be a tough one there on the road. But the non-conference schedule is not tough. But again, Clemson here on the road in Death Valley is going to be a tough one. And then obviously North Carolina, that's a rivalry game. You never know what can happen. But NC State, just because they're here at number 3 on this list, is just because they don't have to play Miami, Louisville, or of course, Florida State. So NC State here at number 3. Moving on to number 2 is the Kansas Jayhawks. They'll play Lindenwood, Illinois on the road, and UNLV here in the non-conference. Illinois probably will be a tough one there just because it's on the road, but either way, Kansas beat them last year. And you look at their Big 12 schedule, they'll play West Virginia and Kansas State both on the road. Those will be very tough games. They don't have to play Utah, though. They don't have to play, also not West Virginia. They don't have to play Utah or Oklahoma State. Those are possibly the 2 favorites to win it all in the Big 12 this year. That's a really good sign there for Kansas. They could definitely be one of those contenders heading into the Big 12 next year with this kind of schedule. But like I said, Kansas State and West Virginia are going to be very tough games here on the road, but they're very competitive. I think they're going to be very competitive in both of these games because like I said, with the Big 12 a lot this year in these schedules, the Big 12 is going to be a lot competitive this year, and a lot of these teams are going to beat up on each other. So Kansas with a pretty easy schedule just because they don't have to play Utah or Oklahoma State. Again, probably the 2 favorites to win it all in the Big 12 this year in 2024. But Kansas doesn't have the easiest schedule in the country. That brings me to the number 1 team that has the easiest schedule in all of college football heading into 2024. That team is going to be the Cincinnati Bearcats. Cincinnati with the easiest schedule for the upcoming 2024 season. They'll play Townsend, Pittsburgh, and Miami of Ohio University Redhawks in the non-conference. Pittsburgh, of course, will be tough in the non-conference, but they do get that game at home, so Cincinnati probably will be favored in that game by at least a field goal. They'll play Texas Tech on the road. They'll play West Virginia and Iowa State and Kansas State. Iowa State and Kansas State are both back-to-back road games, but the good news about this schedule is they don't have to play Kansas, they don't have to play Oklahoma State or Utah, so you do avoid those 3 teams there in the Big 12, which is really good news here for Cincinnati. But like I said, Kansas State, I think, is definitely their toughest road game. Like I said, also, you got back-to-back road games there with Iowa State and Kansas State, but either way, I mean, like I said, the Big 12 is going to be so competitive, and a lot of these teams are going to beat up on each other. I don't really expect Cincinnati to be a really good team this year, but again, how this schedule sets up for them, that's the reason why they came here as the top easiest schedule here for the 2024 season. Like I said, this schedule is the easiest in the country just because they don't play Utah and also Oklahoma State and Kansas. So Cincinnati, again, with the easiest schedule for the upcoming 2024 college football season. So those are my top 10 easiest schedules heading into the 2024 season. Let me guys know what you think about this top 10 list. Do you agree or disagree? Let me down in the comments below, and also give me your top 10 easiest schedules down in the comments below, and also just give me your thoughts about this list. And don't forget, we'll have the toughest schedules video coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that video. But thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.